a miraculous change through releasing worry, guilt, and regret. All right, here's the set aside prayer. I like to start workshops and when I speak with this. God, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth. Amen. Housekeeping. All right, self-care comes first. You take care of you. If you need a comfort break, take it. If you get triggered or whatever happens to you, turn your screen off, take a step away. You take care of you. Okay, tools for today's workshop. We will be having some journaling, so you will need something to write with, something to write on, and then other things that you might like: a candle, fuzzy socks, a snuggly blanket, your favorite beverage, good lighting. If you want to remove any distracting sounds like your children. All right, moving on. Here's the CoDA literature I'm using today, CoDA Blue Book, our 12 Steps Handbook, the 12-piece relationship toolkit, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions workbook, CoDA.org, I'm going to take us there, and our In This Moment daily meditation book. Okay, I love where Promise 4 falls. I just want to point this out, the promise sandwich of what comes before it and what comes after it, because I think both of these things happen as a result of promise number 4, which, let me read for you Promise 4 in its entirety. So right now on my phone, I'm going to CoDA.org to look this up, and there they are, my little promises. Step 4, I release myself from worry, guilt, and regret about my past and present. That's what we're going to talk about today. I am aware enough not to repeat it. So today we will talk about tools to hopefully help us all learn to, well, not repeat it or repeat it less. So the promise sandwich, what comes before this is promise 3. I know a new freedom. And I do feel like releasing worry, regret, and guilt helps us find a new freedom. And then number 5, as we do this, releasing our worry, guilt, and regret, I do know a new love and acceptance of myself. So that is my hope of our journey today. Let's start with hope. This self-forgiveness would be instrumental in moving us out of our codependence and into healthy, whole relationships with God, ourselves, and our fellow human beings. So I'm hoping we will end up a little closer to that self-forgiveness through releasing our worry, guilt, and regret today. All right, I'm going to read a meditation for you if you want to close your eyes. I'm going to start with the meditation. This one is on February 19th from our In This Moment daily meditation book. In this moment, I let go of past negative beliefs. My negativity used to stop me from loving myself and loving others. Now, when old beliefs creep into my thought patterns, I remember the work I have done on step 4. I remind myself of how much I have grown in recovery. I stop, own my behavior, and make positive changes. We're going to be talking about all 3 of those things today: stopping, owning our behavior, and making positive changes. Through experience change, I know in my heart that all is possible. When I realize that negativity is seeping into my thinking, I know that I have a choice to let go of old ways. If I am taking someone else's inventory or taking my own, I remind myself that we are all children of God. I am a child of God. You are a child of God. Each one of us deserves to be treated with love and respect. I love that meditation so much. That is on February 19th if you want to look that one up. What led to this workshop? Okay, well, as Christina said, I do help set up the workshops with Rona, our friend from London. And we had no one on this date. So we needed someone, and we still had no one. We still had no one. So I am leading this workshop kind of out of default. And this is not a workshop that I necessarily would have chosen. Jackie's qualifications to lead this workshop, it says on the screen. I do not feel qualified to lead this workshop. That being said, I don't really feel qualified to lead any workshop. So, that's my codependency showing up. But I'm your leader today, so we forge ahead. Part 1 of 27, we are opening a proverbial can of worms. What I found as I was doing research and a lot of reading, I love our literature and supplementary literature. What I found is there is so much information about this process of releasing worry, guilt, and regret. So this is part 1 of so many parts of what we could do. So I hope the things that I have chosen to share today speak to you as well, but there are so many varied ways to go about this. And if you see down in the right-hand corner, I wrote, all of recovery helps this process. And that is something that I saw in the literature, that pretty much every area, if we're studying shame, inner child, boundaries, our traditions, all of them help release worry, guilt, and regret, both past and present, and helping us to have different habits as we move forward. So, all right, here's our first journaling moment. Here is the question: why are you here? Why are you here? 2 minutes. That's enough time on that one. We're going to move on. Here's our next journaling moment. By the end of today, what is your best case scenario? What does 2 hours from now look like? If you have worked on releasing worry, regret, and what's the other one? Worry, regret, and guilt. Dream super big, write the impossible. What might that look like 2 hours from now? And go. All right, if you need more time, you just keep going, but we are going to move on. All right, we're going to do popcorn time for those of you who've done my workshops before. You know what popcorn time is. That is where you just share 1 or 2 words. And our first popcorn today is going to be, what is the opposite of guilt, worry, or regret? So when you unmute, what I'd like for you to say is the opposite of, and then tell me which one you're saying the opposite of. The opposite of guilt is lollipops, or whatever you think. Okay, so let me stop that screen share, and I'm going to another screen share. I'm going to add mine for all of them. I feel like the opposite of all of these is light, both in terms of like light shining through. These to me lack light, and also a lightness. All 3 of these words feel very heavy to me: worry, guilt, and regret. All right, so let's all just look at this list for a moment and decide, which would we prefer to live in? The worry, guilt, and regret, or all of those other beautiful words? And I do believe we have a choice, and we have some tools to learn how to move out of worry, guilt, and regret into love, acceptance, compassion for self, light, serenity, faith, peace, freedom, surrender, taking responsibility, hope and joy, acceptance, all of this. Moving on. Okay, so I like to share on stories, sometimes pull some quotes out, and I do like Andy D's story a lot from our Blue Book. Here's my first quote from him. Patience that my recovery happens at its own pace and is not comparable to others is a truth difficult for me to accept. So it is in God's timing is what I believe. There it is, in God's time, not Jackie's. In God's time, not, you can put your own name in there. All right, I'm going to read another meditation. This one is from April 16th. In this moment, I admit I make mistakes. I hate making mistakes. I try to do things right, but when I find myself in a complete rat's nest of my own making, I feel devastated. I used to try to cover up a mistake, deny it, or punish myself for it before anyone else got a chance. Now I have a better choice. I practice step 10 and simply admit it. I made a mistake, but I am still okay. I accept my own imperfection and embrace my humanity. This way, I release myself from worry, guilt, and regret about my past. There's promise 4 listed right on April 16th. And move forward. So let's move forward some more. All right, this is a program about working the steps. How do our steps from CoDA help us release worry, guilt, and regret? From Andy D's story, the power of the steps is indescribable to me. Working the steps encouraged growth and compassion. My passage to genuine self-love had commenced. We are going to take a quick trip through steps 6 to 10 with just a titch of step 3. All right, here we go. Here's our titch of step 3. Where is our mind focused? Remember step 3, turning our will and our lives over to the power of God as we understand God. And just for your reference, I do call my higher power God. If you will substitute my word God for your higher power, that would be great. Here is how step 3 is going to help us. Remember, we have turned our will and our lives over. God is already in the solution. God will do for us what we could not do for ourselves. All right, step 6 and 7, we're going to work simultaneously together in how they deal with this. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And step 7, humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. All right, we're going to have a journaling moment. List your worry, guilt, and regret. This can be past, it can be current. No judgment. This is a brain dump. For me, that means just free flow writing. I'm going to give you a couple of moments on this, and then I have another prompt to add to a little more depth to that. So we are journaling right now on our worry, guilt, and regrets. And I will time. If you are wanting a deeper dive, here's more journaling prompts. What repetitive thoughts are associated with your feelings of guilt? What things show up again and again? Are your regret feelings and thoughts rational or irrational, justified or unjustified, and why? And then finally, what can your worry teach you about yourself, and how can it help you grow? All right, moving forward. This is from our 12-step handbook, page 24. I think it's under step 7. We had never expected to grieve for what we had come to believe was detrimental to our happiness. We began to see that these old friends had served us well. Like a childhood life preserver that no longer fit, we put them aside. With the help of God, we were learning to swim. So we had never expected to grieve for what we had come to to believe what was detrimental to our happiness. So I love that thought that releasing something that we know is good to release might feel like losing an old friend. It's a comfortable place to live. It can feel uncomfortable to release something or move into a new space, even if the new space is healthier. So we're going to talk about that. Say it out loud. Name it to tame it. What's mentionable is manageable, right? Release the energy and the power. That's right. I know someone who says that a lot, and I totally agree with that. So if we name it, it has lost some of its power. And by journaling about that, you've already done that. All right, I wanted to share a couple things from the chat. Someone wrote that the opposite of guilt is self-love. The opposite of guilt is amends. And the opposite of regret is forgiveness. I like those. All right. Moving on. If you released that, and by that I mean all that you have journaled about, your worries, guilts, and regrets, how would your life be different? Just imagine for a moment that it is gone, dissolved, vanished. Take a moment and journal on that. All right, moving forward. Here's a quick journaling moment. I do believe in the power of our identity and what we call ourselves and how we view ourselves. And I know for me, often I use negative identities. That's a place I live very easily. Talk about a place that feels like home. So, my current identity, and you can put anything there you want, and positive ones as well, and then my desired identity. And I know for me, I always put on my desired identity, my desired identity side, I am a child of God. When I remember, that's what I like to think of myself as. And I want you to see if you see any guilt or regret messages on your current identity side. And I would encourage you on your desired identity side to put your best self. Okay. Fact check. How true are those identities that you wrote? I don't know. I can't see your list. Are you making these things up? Is it the story in your head? Okay, this 7-step prayer I love so much. If you want to read it with me from the comfort of your living rooms. In this moment, I ask my higher power to remove all of my shortcomings, relieving me of the burden of my past. In this moment, I place my hand in God's, trusting that the void I experience is being filled with my higher power's unconditional love for me and those in my life. Do you see that part I underlined? Relieving me of the burden of my past. How do we do this? Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. All right, this is from our 12 Steps Handbook, page 25. Our name came first, and the reason was obvious. We had been the least able to escape from our own codependence, and therefore, in most cases, we received the greatest injuries. A change in behavior toward ourselves would have to come first. This is from our CoDA workbook, the green book, page 107. Often it is easier to see how we have harmed others. Sometimes it takes a spiritual 2x4 in order for us to admit just how harmful we have been to ourselves. If shame or guilt overwhelms us, we can rely on our higher power and remember our decision to live God's will. We find peace when we let go and trust our higher power. Our 8-step prayer reads, and if you'd like to read it along with me, in this moment, I see the impossible become not only possible, but real. As I forgive myself for my shortcomings, I am able to forgive others, opening the way for a true and lasting change in my behavior. Thank you, God. And there's that underlining part, lasting change. How do we do that? Step 9, it's going to help us with this. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I remember when I first came into CoDA and my sponsor shared with me that part of my amends process would be making amends with myself. I came in from another 12-step program that was not a part of that 12-step program at all. I was not on the list, was making a list of all the ways I had hurt those around me. And after I had made those amends, there was still a lot of damage to myself and a lot of areas that I didn't love about myself, and so much self-judgment. And that self-amends process, some of you might have attended my workshop on self-amends, that's an ongoing way to live, the living amends that I make to myself, and we're going to talk about that. But I remember before I even started, I was on step 1 and she shared that we would be doing that. And I got so excited. Even now, it just makes me a little emotional that there was a 12-step program that acknowledged that I was important enough. And what I've learned through CoDA is that often, if not all the time, I get to be at the top of the list. And that if I am not taking care of myself and keeping myself in a healthy mental state, anything else on the list is very difficult. So this is, for those of you new to CoDA, whether you're coming from another 12-step program or this is your first 12-step program, you get to find healing for that relationship with yourself. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but it's much more in depth than what this offers. All right, Andy's story. Only with my higher power's assistance does a chance for change and growth come. That's what I want, change and growth. All right, this is Anne. I am aware of time. I just want you to know that. Our CoDA Blue Book, page 64. We may find it helpful. These are some of the ways that the CoDA Blue Book recommends self-amends. We may find it helpful to write a letter to ourselves, outlining our inappropriate behaviors toward ourselves. We may imagine ourselves and or our child selves in the room with us while we read our letter of amends. We may ask our sponsor to be there during this time. We may create time to face ourselves in the mirror and, while making eye contact, share our wrong and make our amends. However, we decide to complete these steps with ourselves, it is important to begin treating ourselves with love, respect, and care. All right, when we come back, we will start with this popcorn time, living amends. What tools do we have so we can be aware enough not to repeat it? I know there's a lot of recovery in this room, in all of these rooms, and I want to hear what you have done for your living amends, but we are going to take a break. It's about the top of the hour. What we're going to do, if it's okay, my plan is for you all to take a couple, maybe 3 minutes or so for a comfort break. And then I have about a 5-minute meditation on releasing guilt. So if you want to take a comfort break and come back to do the meditation. I just want to acknowledge that what the journaling that you did on writing your worry, regrets, and guilts, that's something in 2 hours we can't possibly get all the way wrapped around this. And that's a process, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but 2 hours is really super quick. So what I'm hoping today is that you get some tools and that you can write down some new ways to approach this, to release these things. I also wanted to share one other thing about this workshop. Usually I share a fair amount of my story, my history, little anecdotes. And what I was thinking as I was putting this workshop together was I really didn't care to talk about areas where I've been successful in this, that things that I've released and moved on from, I have released and moved on from. And a lot of those I don't really care to dig up again. But I do think it is helpful. I wanted to share just two little areas. My biggest area of worry is around my children, and I actually had worry about my children before I even had children. I already had worry. It's a funny worry. I don't know, why am I trying to qualify what it is? Before my children were born, I was worried about the relationship I would have with them when they were adults. This is impossible. That is something that I have been working on for years. I remember the first time I told my therapist that, and they try and like not show a lot, but his jaw dropped. And gosh, that just sounds so painful. That has caused a lot of pain for me. Another area that I was able to identify in doing my work on this workshop is I do have regret for things I have done, but I was also thinking about regrets I have for things that I have left undone. And especially with my ex-husband, often I stayed in an unhealthy marriage far too long. And I went voiceless and needless for years. And I have regret for not saying things, not speaking my truth, not standing up for myself. And just today, I actually had the opportunity, I'm going to say, to stand up for myself. And these are things that I have learned a lot with my therapist and with my sponsor, my CoDA sponsor, where we actually practice conversations and we talk through what it will look like. And we even practice gestures, like this is something I'm allowed to do with people. Put my hand up if what they're saying is getting in my way. So just today, my ex-husband reached out and just shared his frustration with our scheduling with the children, and there were shaming messages in his texts. And for the first time, I thought to just say, I feel like you're shaming me and I'm doing my best. And I don't know why I just named it. And you know what? It shut it right down and it felt so empowering. I didn't have to live in current worry, guilt, regret. I just took care of myself right in that moment. And I will say a lot of these tools for me have come slowly. So God needed me to slow down. So let me get into here and share this screen. Lasting change. How do we do that? Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment and read one of our meditations. I think that will help me. This is from January 5th. I like this. In this moment, I ask for God's help. Indeed. Oftentimes, before I try to do something different, fear waits for me at the door, keeping me from experimenting with new behaviors. This is perfect because that's what we're going to popcorn about. As a result, I continue to do what's comfortable instead of what's healthy. I need to do 3 things to change this pattern. Do you want to know what these 3 things are? Number 1, ask God for help. Number 2, believe God is helping me. And number 3, take action. Asking for help requires some effort because it's hard to commit to change. After I ask for God's help, the next step involves the practical application of my faith. Even if I can't convince myself that God is helping me right now, I can act as if God is helping me through this stage of recovery. I take positive action. I can accomplish what used to baffle and paralyze me. I act with new confidence and commitment to purpose. Then hope and integrity return to my life. That was January 5th. I like that one so much. All right, so we are going to do a collective, like a group conscience on what living amends. We're going to pool all of our resources. There's a lot of recovery in these rooms. I want to know what your living amends look like. Let's go back 2 screens. Where was that? Our 8-step prayer says, I am able to forgive others, opening the way for a true, and I'm going to say I'm able to forgive myself. I want to say there, opening the way for a true and lasting change in behavior. So what we're talking about is this lasting change. What tools do we have so we can do that second part of the promise? Be aware enough not to repeat these things that cause us guilt, regret, and worry. So let me stop sharing and we're going to go to our Word document and we're going to popcorn. Raise your hands if you have any ideas for what we can do to make our living amends. What are some tools we have to use? What tools can you do so that you can be aware enough not to repeat it? Daily inventory, step 10. All right, excellent. Yes, I hear a lot of step 11 in that. Super. Positive affirmations. Yes, we might have some of those coming up in this workshop. Ooh, I like that one. Oh, I see. So yeah, like a code word where the one word holds a lot of meaning. That's fantastic. You know, when my kids were little, we got caught in this horrible thunderstorm out in the middle of the wilderness in North Carolina. And we had to pick them up and run them to shelter. There was lightning just flashing everywhere. So whenever we need our kids to follow, whenever I need my kids to follow me instantly like that without asking any questions, the word is lightning. And they're like, okay. So yeah, that one word holds lots of meaning. I called that spontaneity. Is that okay? Yep. I like that a lot. I'm going to write meetings. I feel like meetings are a tool that work for everything because I hear all the stuff I need to. I'm also going to write on here something, you can keep raising your hands if you think of other tools. Naming it, mentionable is manageable. You know, that is a tool, saying it out loud. Mentionable is manageable. Yes. Is it true? Is it true? Check the facts. All right. Facts versus thoughts and feelings. I like that so much. All right. Anyone else? Yeah. And I know for me, if I've been rehearsing something, you know, I can move away from the truth and then forget that that's not even the truth, you know? So that's good to question that. We are going to move on. All right, living amends. If you think of more living amends, what you can do for yourself to help you to not repeat these things, put them in the chat. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory. One of you mentioned that. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So my sponsor talks a lot about the 3 A's. And I heard one of you mention awareness as well. The first one, the gift of awareness. We cannot work on not repeating something if we're not aware of it in the first place. So what I am learning as I move deeper into recovery is that awareness is truly a gift, whatever it is. Awareness of the feeling, awareness of the character defect, awareness of the worry, guilt, or regret. If it's there, it's like if I have an illness, I want to know so I can take action, not live in ignorance. So the first day is awareness. The second one is acceptance, checking the facts. Is this true? Am I seeing this clearly? And then the third one is action. And we just talked about some action items, things we can do. And for me, one of my best action items, honestly, is meetings. I love trying out new meetings, hearing new voices, people who have different recovery, deeper, longer, newer, all of it is very helpful for me. And I hear that in meetings. All right. Journaling moment. Your experiences, either difficult or delightful as they are, all of them teach us something. We touched on this a little bit earlier. What lessons have you learned, and how might your experience help someone else? We're dipping a little bit into 12th step there. So we're going to take just a couple minutes for you to think about how your guilt, worry, or regret, what have you learned from that? You can pick one thing off your initial list or just journal about it in general. And how might this experience help someone else? All right, moving on into step 11. Although I did want to just say, I think releasing our identity of, I am, the person, fill in that blank. I am the person who lives with this regret. I am the person who, I don't know, cheated on my wife, or I am the person who, for me, I will say had unreasonable worry about my children. Whatever that identity is that we take on because it, feels like it fits, we get comfortable there. It's like an old shoe. We get to move on. We get to look at our past through a different lens. Let me go back to this screen, and I think looking at the lessons we've learned and how this experience might help someone else is part of that moving forward, even if it's something that feels unforgivable or impossible to move out of. I think often of like a loving parent looking at their child, or a screen's coming up later that, if a friend were to bring this to you, what would you tell them? And I think we would encourage them to move out of this, find that new identity, and allowing ourselves to be transformed and change and find a new identity, which I think is scary. It's like stepping out on that tightrope without a net. So, all right, moving on into step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. All right, I have one more meditation to read for you. In this moment, this is from August 19th. In this moment, I allow myself to be imperfect. When I don't feel good enough and I start thinking of all I've done wrong or what's gone wrong in my life, I close my eyes and breathe for a minute. I think about the beautiful things in my world, the trees, skies, animals, and water. The universe has amazing organization and structure, but it's not perfect. With recovery, I give myself permission to have the same standards. Affirming that I am good enough helps me to stop judging myself, and I can go forward today without regret. Wouldn't that be nice? All right. So I feel like we've done a fair amount of identifying our actions, things that led to future worry, guilt, and regret. We've talked about ways we can, tools that we have, ways we can make different choices. I want to say that this is not about justifying past behavior. What we learn in our steps is that we do acknowledge wrongdoings, we acknowledge areas where we need to alter behavior, but we don't have to live in that. We can use step 6 and 7 to discover what character defects have led to these behaviors, and then becoming willing to have God remove these character defects. And I do believe our steps lead us continually to our higher power, which is our step 11. So thumbs up, thumbs down, those of you on screen here. When we are in conscious contact, which we talk about in step 11, let me go back, read it one more time, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. So when you are in conscious contact with God, guilt, regret, and worry cannot exist. Yes, no, in the middle, yeah. When I am connected to my higher power, I am not living in my regret, worry, or my guilt. All right, so practicing our prayer. You all are on mute, so I want to practice. If you don't pray out loud, I'm going to invite you and give you the opportunity right now. God could and would if God were sought. So I want you to look at your list of regrets, worries, or guilts, or pull one up. You're going to pick one. Pick the worst one. What's the worst one? And what I want you to do, I want you to say out loud, I actually want you to do this. God, I am giving to you, fill the thing in. Go ahead and say that out loud. Then I want you to ask God to take this away, help it to vanish and disappear. Say it out loud. I want you to say, I believe you can do this. Me and you, God, together. I want you to say out loud, God, change me. And I want you to say, God, make me whole. And let it be so. Amen. If you don't pray out loud, this is a good thing to practice. I do it in my car, driving alone. All right. Random thoughts Jackie thinks are helpful. So there were so many topics in my exploration for this workshop, and these don't all necessarily go together. So this is a little view into my brain. All right, self-forgiveness. I do think this is a very important part of releasing regret, worry, and guilt. Self-forgiveness, moving on. And you do not have to forgive yourself again and again. You might need to, but you're also allowed to do one and done. You're allowed to move on. I write, imagine a friend coming to you, bringing whatever this thing is that you feel you cannot release. What would you tell them? What would you tell your child? All right, I love this one. Symbolic gestures, rituals, ceremonies. We humans get to make up ceremonies, our own rituals. You can make up any kind of ritual you want to. I love one symbolic gesture I do when I have a brain dump or a lot of anxiety. I pull a piece of trash out of my recycle bin and I get a Sharpie and I write it all down. And then I either rip it up or burn it, put it back in the recycle bin. That feels so powerful. Another ritual that I've done recently, I wanted to find a way to move forward from having driven my van while my children were in it while I was intoxicated. And I bought a license plate. It's one of those, it should not hurt to be a child. It's a child abuse license plate. And I put a message on there that not everyone's going to understand. It's a message for me. That is a symbolic gesture I did to help me move forward. That's one of the hardest regrets for me to fully release. Make it up as you go. See if it works. Get creative. Anything. There are no rules for this one. All right, progress, not perfection. My therapist talks a lot about just trying things on, practicing things. I'm a musician, and when I practice the piano, it's not right the first time. I got to try out some different ways, write in a new fingering, talk to a teacher. So we get to practice. We are not expected to live in perfection. There is no arrival in this. There's no arrival at releasing the regret, worry, and guilt. Shout out for therapy. I do want to give a shout out for therapy. There are some things that are just bigger than recovery, bigger than your sponsor. And I think we can't expect everything to get healed in these rooms. There's trauma, there's deeper things, and therapists have tools to help you with that. All right, step 12, how can your experience help someone else? Nothing in your life need be wasted. I truly believe that. Everything can be of use. The pain is the path. Ouch. I don't like this one, but I do think it's true. Those areas that keep popping up and, like just stabbing either a big knife or a tiny little pin, that hum of the refrigerator that just never goes away, that kind of pain, or the big pain, that's the area that needs to be looked at and addressed. How boundaries help. Okay, we could do a whole workshop on this, how boundaries will help you release this. But I did want to talk about one area of boundaries that has been very helpful for me. My sponsor and I have been working off and on boundaries for about a year and a half. It's been extraordinarily helpful. And I want to talk a little bit about letting your no be no and your yes be yes. A way to remove guilt from our current lives is for our no to be no and our yes to be yes. And to think about that inner alignment and looking for the most sincerest expression of what you want and need. If we make promises to others, to ourselves, out of alignment with that inner truth or out of guilt or obligation, we will either resentfully fulfill those promises or fail on the promise, perpetuating these guilty feelings and activating for me that inner self-critic. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And then I added, remember, there is always the option of maybe. We also have the power to say, I need to think about this. I'm not sure. I need some time. Boundaries equal freedom. Boundaries also help us to not perpetuate future regret, worry, guilt. Living in freedom. Affirmation time, affirmative. Okay, this is from Tools for Recovery. Affirmations help us attain and maintain a positive outlook and support feelings of self-worth. Some of us post them in a prominent place, such as a bathroom mirror or the dashboard of our car. I like to write them on Post-its. We find it helpful to say them out loud every day. If you have not tried saying them out loud, give it a try. Affirmations expressed in the present are gentle reminders to stay positive. Make your thoughts work for you. Your self-talk is a powerful voice. Purposefully replace your negative thoughts with positive ones. If you are feeling like you're stuck in a shame spiral or stuck in the guilt or regret of negative thought processes, stop. The 3 A's. Number 1, see it. What's the first A, Carol? Not acceptance. Awareness. Yes, awareness. Become aware of that negative thought. accept it, and then the action is to replace it with a positive one. This goes hand in hand with your identity work. I am a beautiful child of God. I am a woman active in recovery. I am a woman who wants to live without regret, shame, and guilt. So what I've done, and my computer shut down, so I'm not going to take the time to pull the screen up again, but on CoDA.org, and I listed it there, but if you just Google recovery patterns of codependence of CoDA, up will pop all of the patterns, but also in recovery. I like meetings where we read both the pattern and then in recovery. So what I've done is I turned some of these in recoveries into affirmations. And I want to invite all of you to say them out loud with me, and palms up. Palms down, those of you who have done workshops with me before, palms down is when we want to release things. Like we could do palms down with all of our regret, shame, worry, guilt, let it go. And then palms up is a gesture, a posture of receiving. So if you would like to turn your palms up, and please read out loud with me. I am able to establish and uphold healthy priorities and boundaries in my life. I ask my higher power for guidance and consider possible consequences before I make decisions. I'll bet that will help us release future regrets, worries, and guilts, right? Considering possible consequences. Moving on. I stand in my truth and maintain my integrity, whether others approve or not, even if it means making difficult changes in my life. I ask directly for what I want and need and trust the outcome to my higher power. I do not try to manipulate outcomes with blame or shame. And finally, I love this one. I believe in and trust a power greater than myself. I willingly surrender my self-will to my higher power. Step 3. And I like when I do my workshop, just to show you my step 3. This is my surrender, a little child up on an abandoned shed. Can't get it without the reflection, but you can see her. That's me reaching up to God with a little pigtail. All right. Another random thing Jackie thought of, just a reminder, this is a we program. You are not alone. What you are experiencing, someone else has experienced. This is where naming it out loud, bringing it to someone else, they can nod and say, yes, I've experienced that as well too. That's what I love about these support groups, that you find people who have common experience. You are not alone. What did today pull up? What do I mean by that? I don't remember why I wrote that. We're going to move on. Back to Andy's story. When the spirit is within me, when the light burns inside, I know that I am worthwhile just as I am. I know that one day at a time, I can trust that my life will work. Not only work, but prosper. Yeah, let's do one more meditation. Why not? We've got time. In this moment, January 19th, I let go and let God. When I surrender, I allow my higher power to do for me what I cannot do for myself. This releases me from the stress to perform and fear of failure. When I stop, drop, and pray, I give myself time to refocus. I especially like the Serenity Prayer because it is simple, direct, and powerful. It helps me realign my priorities. The benefits are inner peace that money can't buy, the courage to be all that I can be, and the wisdom to know I'm not in control. I see a miraculous change in my life. That's the name of this workshop. Today I am in the flow of my higher power's will for my life. And do you know how we get in that flow? We simply acknowledge of it. We simply acknowledge that. We say, oh yeah, I'm in my higher power's will today. I'm in the flow of my higher power's will for my life. You know what my sponsor says? How else could they be? How else could we be, right? We do our best for where we are with the tools we have. Well, thank you all so much for going on this journey with me. And, you know, my hope and prayer is that each of us may live our lives with less worry, regret, guilt, more freedom, more of that list of the opposites. That's what I want in my life. I want the fullness, the beauty that recovery offers. I am going to go back and we're going to do, so this is the end of Andy's story, and I just love it. And I'm going to use it as our closing prayer. So if you want to say it with me, I leave you now with the hope that you will be fearless and thorough. Face your truth with rigorous honesty. Finally, accept your powerlessness over other people and your compulsiveness. Let go that your higher power may bring grace into your life. Laugh too. Allow yourself to enjoy life. These are my hopes for you and for me. I also hope that our higher power's love will fill us with self-love so that we may live each day in peace and love and thus be free to be of service to our fellows. Can I get an amen? All right, that's all I have for today. Thanks so much, Chris.